Alright, next section of the wire up on the Stratocaster, or Strat style guitar wiring. We have right here, it's called a treble bleed circuit. Now what this is going to do for the guitar and for the player is, typically on a volume potentiometer, as you taper back the volume, what happens is the potentiometer, just on its structure, will take out the high end first. Now what this is going to do is it jumps your input from the pickups to your output, out to your 1/4 inch jack, and it'll leave the high end sound coming through all the way down, so it basically takes your entire sound and tapers it off all at once rather than taking the highs out first. Now I've preset this up off camera because you have two small components that are going on the potentiometer, and it can be a little bit challenging at times to get those set up. You want to get these in cleanly, and you want to keep the legs on there long for now. We're going to solder these two components into these two pole pieces so that when we run other wire through there, we can melt the solder, insert wire, and the other connection will hold the components in place. So I hope I explained that good to you, and I didn't want to waste your time watching me fumble around with those two components. You are going to notice they are going to move around, and I want to get these soldered in so that they stop moving around and that they're somewhat secure. And once I get these soldered in, I'm going to leave the legs on there. We'll trim them off later. I like treble bleed circuits. I've put these in a lot of my guitars, but they are a little bit challenging to put together. Okay, we've got one side on. I'm going to clean my iron up again, and then we'll go for the other side. I'm going to come up front here, so I hope I don't ruin your view here. I'm going to blow on that to cool it down. Alright, let's see how we're doing here. Okay, see how those components are nice and tight? We're going to leave those legs on for now, and then what we're going to do is we're going to run a hot wire from the switch here to the input on the volume. So we'll get that in place. Okay, I'm going to solder that in place. Again, I hope I'm giving you a good view of this. And then we're going to check and just make sure that that's on there. Okay? That's on now. This is going to be the flip side to why I soldered both of these on at the same time. I still left a little bit of a hole in there so that I can feed the wire through. And then I'll have to bend that up into place. Get that secured. Whenever you're putting multiple components in one pole, it can be challenging. So, try to be patient. That's why I kind of wanted to show you this technique. I've had a lot of issues in the past just trying to figure out how to do this, and I figure if I can get components soldered into multiple spots, I'm not going to heat this up, so it's going to keep everything secure. Because the minute I heat up this section again, the solder is going to melt on the components that are already soldered in, and you don't want those breaking loose. So, here we go. And let's hope we don't lose the connection with that treble bleed circuit. At this point also we can just load on the solder because this will be the last connection on this pole piece. Blow on it. And that's good. Double check here. Everything's on. I'll get that off. Okay, now while we're here, we need to run a wire from the output section, which is this centerpiece, And that's going to go out to our 1/4" jack. And that's going to be our hot out for the input. That's where we're going to plug in. So I want to run that wire also while we're here. And that's the same process. We'll put that through the little hole in the connection there. Pry up. Wrap it around. And always remember too, you always want to try and keep as clean of a connection as possible on all this stuff so that you don't run into troubles later. That's not my best work, but it's gonna do. Again, we've got a lot of components in there and it's kind of a challenge, so try and be patient. And let's put this in, and then we'll go and trim all this off camera because you don't need to see that. Don't be afraid to use a lot of solder on a connection like this. Okay. Okay, so we've got our output going to the 1/4" jack. And all we really need to do right now is trim off of the components that are on here. And our basic wiring for the volume potentiometers and tone pots is almost complete. We do have to run a ground wire off of here also for the 1/4" jack. And you can also run it off any one of these ground areas right here. So let me turn this stuff off and we'll get going hooking up the pickups.